Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? Grab your coffee, maybe a snack or two, and let's get into it, okay? Today is a better day for me. I feel a lot better, but I'm still not 100% myself. So, one thing that I want to talk about, okay, is this article that was sent to me, and I said, oh my gosh, wow. Okay, so, you know, I had talked about the fact that, and I had said this, oh my gosh, about almost 2 years ago. I want to say that I had felt that America was going to be the new Venezuela, and I had actually said the word Amerizuela, right? Okay, well, now Venezuela, okay, is officially out of food. Yeah, and so after several years of like long lines, rationing, shortages, socialist country, right? This country does not have enough food to feed its population. And the opposition government has declared a nutritional emergency. And this is just the most recent nail in the coffin, I guess you could say. You know, that's like the normal like American term that we use. It's the final nail in the coffin type thing, okay? And this is just the painful economic collapse that they have dealt with, right? Now, many people expect an economic collapse to be shocking, instant, dramatic, right? But really, it's far more gradual than that. And it looks like empty shelves, long lines, desperate government officials trying to cover their butts, right? Hungry people. Now, for the last 2 years, we've been looking at, well, I know I have been looking at Venezuela. And because I wanted to see, and I've also been watching the timeline from when they were one of the richest countries in the world to when they collapsed. Because I wanted to then look at our timeline to see if we were headed in that direction. And yes, we are. Okay. And as each shocking event has unfolded, okay, and we are literally like following the exact footsteps, right? And Americans who feel that our country would be better served as a socialist government, you'd be wise to take note of the timeline of Venezuela's collapse. Okay. Now, here's a quick review of why Venezuela is now out of food. In 2013, many began to suspect that the outlook for Venezuela was grim when prepping, like what we do, prepping, being people of the prepared mind, okay, it became illegal. Yeah. And the Attorney General of Venezuela called on prosecutors to actually target people who were hoarding, yeah, basic staples with serious sanctions. Now, shortly thereafter, grocery stores instituted a fingerprint registry to purchase food and supplies. And families had to register and were allotted a certain amount of supplies to prevent hoarding. And then just over a year ago, it became more apparent that the country was failing when long lines for basic necessities like laundry soap and diapers and food became the norm rather than the exception. And thousands of people were standing in line for 5-6 hours in hopes that they would be able to purchase just a few much needed items. I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of what it's like just to get gas in that country. It's absurd, all right? And then shortly after the story broke to the rest of the world, the propaganda machine shifted into high gear. Oh, gosh, yeah. As the government began to ration electricity, which is true, that you want to talk about rolling blackouts? Oh, you haven't seen nothing until you've seen what the people of Venezuela go through. And it was announced that this was not due to an economic reasons at all, but instead was a measure of their great concern for the environment, which is BS. BS. All right. And as the situation continued to devolve, farmers in Venezuela, they were forced to hand over their crops last summer, and they assumed control of essential goods like food and began putting retail outlets out of business. And then, once they had control of the sales outlets, they began forcing farmers and food manufacturers to sell anywhere from 30 to 100% of their products to the state at the price that the state opted to pay, as opposed to stores and supermarkets. But what wasn't enough to keep the population fed is, and isn't it astonishing how much less motivated people are to produce food and supplies when they are no longer allowed to benefit from their hard work, right? But historically, collectivism and farming have never gone successfully hand in hand. Now, this January, the government told citizens that they would need to produce their own food. And the Ministry of Urban Farming was created to oversee this. While self-reliance sounds great, it isn't so great in Venezuela. So, just so the urban farmers don't get too self-reliant, a registry of the crops and livestock will be required. And obviously, they've already proven that they have no issues forcing farmers to hand over what they've produced. Yeah. So now it looks like all of the socialist measures and forced food production haven't been enough to keep the people of Venezuela fed, and the country is in so much trouble right now that it is impossible to cover it up with propaganda. And socialist legislators are hoping to manipulate the initiative in the other direction and use it to expand government control of private food enterprises. And the legislator, his name is Hector Rodriguez, has insisted that the economic emergency does absolutely nothing, and the government should impose itself on private enterprises. And another socialist legislator, Ricardo Molina, is calling for the government to expropriate polar POLAR, Venezuela's largest private food corporation. He said, we have to intervene on private sector enterprises. What an ass. In Venezuela, previously forced a polar food distribution center in Caracas to shut down in July, putting 12,000 tons of food, 6 million liters of soft drinks, and 2,000 jobs at risk. And now the announcement of the nutritional emergency makes it official, and Venezuela is out of food. And it's only a matter of time before Venezuelans are quite literally starving due to the long series of terrible decisions by their leaders. So, it's essential to note that all of this plays out, that there is little people can do now to rectify their situations. If they are not already quietly prepared, they are completely at the mercy of their socialist government. And it is vital to put back supplies well before the general public is aware that a crisis is pending. As well, consider the fact that many folks here believe that a socialist government is exactly what our country needs. God help us. And they eagerly lap up the promises of free education, free health care, and blah, 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 free this and free that. Yeah, feel the burn, remember that? Yeah. And they warmly embrace the presidential candidate who is unabashed socialist. And it absolutely astonishes me, and it astonishes a lot of people that I know. And they'd be well advised to pay attention to how well the freebies have worked out in Venezuela. And socialism is not a sustainable economic model, something that has been proven time and time again, which, much to the detriment of the victims of the misguided notions. The game pieces here are already lined up to control the American people should our economic situation continue to worsen, which it is. There's no turning back now. There's no fixing this. So, I mean, for example, there are already laws in place. Prevent hoarding, right? No. Remember a few years ago when 44 was in office. He signed an executive order that gives the federal government authority over every resource and infrastructure element in the United States. And there's a lot of uncomfortable parallels here that can be drawn between America's financial situation and the disaster in Venezuela. And one thing is very clear. Self-sufficiency is the only way to protect you and yours. Even if you haven't really begun to prepare and be of the prepared mind, there's still time to become more self-reliant. So, build your pantries up. Okay? You know the saying, 1 is none, 2 is 1, so why not buy 3? Okay? Just buy that extra can of this, that, okay? You don't have to buy whole flats of everything. Don't have to do that. An extra this or that, okay? Create a pantry of things that you and your family will eat, not just because it's cheap or you can get a whole bunch of it real quick. Don't. Because when it comes down to it, you guys probably won't eat it anyway. And it'll be a waste of time and money. Get your freedom gardens going. For the past 2 months, and now that we're in August, I'll be helping with 2 more people with starting their freedom gardens. Okay, so get your freedom gardens going. Get your heirloom seeds, stuff like that. Okay, stock up on non-food supplies too. Get your HBA or health and beauty aids. Okay, your first aid, your cleaning supplies. Cleaning supplies are essential. Why? Because if anybody remembers back during the Balkan War, the one thing that a lot of the people perished from was not because they were hungry. It wasn't starvation. It was infection. Why? Because they didn't live in clean environments. So remember that, okay? So, you know, now is the time, because we know of what is coming. We can all feel it in our guts. It's a good possibility, guys. Prepare now. All right, I'm out of here. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. You stay safe. You stay positive. You keep prepping. And as always, fearless.